Tulsi. Okay, so yeah, let's begin with the meeting, and I have started recording now. So this is our 6th Selenium training meet, and I suppose not the last in this year. Probably we'll have another meeting. So let's first see what all we are going to see in this meeting. So I have the agenda here. So what we are going to see today is the page factory. We have seen page object in the last meeting. We will see how we can capture a screenshot of application only on test failures. We will also see how we can set up Maven, how we can use Maven in Eclipse. So we will have a sample Maven project. Then we will convert our project from existing form to the Maven project. And then we will see how we can use the data file in the Maven, and we will execute that from the Maven, and we will see the shortfall report. So quite a few things to see. Hello everyone, I have begun with the meeting. This is the agenda, so let's begin. So let's begin with the page factory. Okay. Okay. So at any point of time, if you have question, you can you can just type it in the chat window, and I'll try to answer that. Okay. So let me open the project of last session, and if you guys have seen, I made couple of updates in the test. So this is our test. The updates I have made is, if you guys remember, the test registration new method used to take lots of arguments, and it is taking only one argument at this point, which is registration data. Now, for the sake of those who are attending this meeting first time, what we have done here is we have tried to emulate registration feature, right? And the site is site is here. It's called Mercury Tour. So it has a registration feature. I'll just go to registration and show. Yeah, so what we are doing in the test is we are filling it first name, last name, and other details, and clicking on a submit button, and then we are doing validation. Yes, everyone, I have started the recording time. Okay, so let's go back to the previous test. So this is the test. What we are doing here is we are getting the data from a data provider class, which gives us the registration data object. Then we are opening the registration page, and then we are doing the registration. So this is all we have seen in the previous sessions. Okay, so there is nothing new in this except that the method takes the registration data object. Now we are not passing in first name, last name, and all other registration fields. Okay, I can show it to you how this data object is formed. So if I go to registration data class, okay, so this class, so this is the data provider class. Here what I have created two registration objects, and since the data provider in TestNG returns two-dimensional object array, I am returning these two objects. Okay, so this test is run twice for two set of data. Okay, so I come to WebDriver test here. So I can execute it at this point, and we will see registration happening for two set of data sets. Okay, so there's nothing new here. Now let us see what new we have done in the other project. So if you see here, there's another project which is page factory. Now let us compare it with this Selenium session project. So I'll just close this test. I'll close the registration data class also. Let me know if I'm going fast. Pause me if there is any problem in comprehending me. Okay. Okay. So the difference is, if you see the new registration page class in the Selenium session, what we have done here is we have the register new method. Okay, and this register new method actually does the operation of registering the new user, that is typing in the first name, last name, phone number, and other things. Now if you see here, what we have is we have different small methods. So we have something called enter first name. So this does the job of typing the first name, enter last name, and other things. Now let us see what has changed in the page factory project. So I've opened the new registration page class from the page factory. Okay, so this is a different project. Now if you see the new registration page from the Selenium session project, we have this statements like driver.find element, by some locator, sign keys repeated in different methods. Enter first name, enter last name, enter phone, isn't it? Okay, so I was explaining that you guys can see that the statements of driver.find element are repeated in all these methods, isn't it? Enter first name, enter last name, and others. Okay, now if you see the new registration page, what we have done here is we are using a mechanism of Selenium 2 or WebDriver, which is known as page factory. So what we are trying to do here is we are trying to create a web element object. Okay, now these objects are something which are initialized when we create the page factory. So how does this work? So let us first see the syntax here. Syntax goes as we have an annotation for cache lookup, then we have another annotation for as find by. Here I have used name, we can use CSS or XPath, and then we have the name of the web element object. So this is repeated for all the elements here. So what is cache lookup? So how WebDriver works here is, say WebDriver finds element on the page, and if there are repeated occurrences of element being used in the test, then WebDriver will look at the cached copy of the element here. It will not go and try to find the element again and again. You can compare this mechanism with the caching in browser, wherein if your browser has already cached copy of an image, then browser will not download it from server again and again. So this helps in reducing the consumption of resources. At find by, as its name indicates, it will help you in finding the elements using some of the element locator strategy. Here we are using the name. So this is the same mechanism which is repeated across all of the web elements here, and these are the elements which we are going to use in all the test steps. Is that clear? Okay, great. Now let us compare our method. So we have entered first name here. The same method we had here also in the first name, wherein we were doing driver.find element, finding the element, .send keys, and then we were returning the page object itself, because control stays on the same page. We had seen this when we had discussed the page object pattern. Now let us see the new registration page class coming from the page factory. Now what we have to do here is, we do not have to do driver.find element or other things, because Selenium is going to take care of that for us. What we have to do is, we have to just take the element and call the appropriate method. So I can just say first name text box .send keys, last name text box .send keys, and where this first name comes from, this is something we have declared here. Is that clear? Yeah, so you see the advantage here. We do not have to keep repeating driver.find element and other operations. We can just use the web element and we can call the corresponding method here. That's all. The rest of the code remains the same. Now let us see how these elements are initialized, because if you see here, these are just web elements we have declared, but they are not being initialized or they are not being assigned any value here. How this works is, there is a class, a convenient class in Selenium 2 known as page factory, which has a method called init element, which is used to initialize these elements. So if I come back to the test here, say if I see the previous test, the WebDriver test from the old Selenium session, what we have here is, we are just creating the object of the page here, and then we are calling the register new method. Now let us see what happens in the new class. What we have to do here is, after opening the application URL, when we are creating the object here, object of the page, which is the registration page, we have to use the page factory method here. It has init element, page factory class here, which has init element, and it takes two arguments. One argument is your driver itself, and another argument is the class object of the page. So how do we get the class object of the page? We can say new registration page dot class, which this is a mechanism in Java to get the class object of the page. Okay, so this is how element is initialized. Is that clear? Okay, so guys, are you able to hear me clearly? Yeah, I'll repeat it again. I think there is some problem. Babu is not able to hear me. I'll repeat it again. Okay. I was saying that in our new registration page class, in the page factory project, what we have is, we are using all these web elements, right? But we have not initialized them. So if we do not initialize them, we cannot invoke all those methods like send keys or click over these web elements. Now how do we initialize them? To be able to initialize them, we have a mechanism in the page factory class. There is a method. So if you see the new WebDriver test class, which is coming from the page factory project, after getting the application URL, how do we get the registration page object? We say registration page, name of the object, we use page factory class, and then we initialize the element. So its syntax goes as page factory init element. It takes two arguments. One argument is your driver object, another argument is the class object of the class for which you want to initialize the page object. Now which class is being used here? The class is new registration page. How do we get the class object of the page? Just say new registration page dot class. So Java will get you the access of the page object of the Java will get you the access to the class object of this class. And once we do this, in this case, what will happen is, all these web elements are going to be initialized. Okay, so we do not have to write any extra code to initialize this. This method comes from Selenium itself. We just have to use it in our test. That's all. Is that clear? rest of the test. So rest of the test remains same. We are doing the registration here and the other which we had in earlier test also. Now let us see another difference which we have. So if we see new registration page class, the last statement which we are doing the test is to click on the submit button or the register button. So when we click on the register button, we are returning a different page object, which is account creation page. So how do we create this object? The same way how we are getting the new registration page object and initializing the web elements in the test method. What we do here is we again initialize the elements of the account creation page. The similar way, we use the page factory class, we call the init elements method, we pass two arguments. One is the driver, and in this case we need the class object of account creation page. So we pass account creation page dot class, which gives us the class object of the account creation page. That's all. It's very similar to how we are calling the init element in the WebDriver test here. Very similar to that. The only difference is the page object is changed. Here page object is new registration page, while here the page object is account creation page. Okay, is that clear? Okay, great. So we do not have much code per se in account creation page. It is kind of empty class. So if we want to write more tests, this is how it should go. If we are returning a new page object from one page, we should initialize the element using the init elements method of the page factory. So this is okay. So when we are registering a new user, we get the account creation page object. How do we get this? Because we are calling the click register method, and this method returns the account creation page. Okay. Okay. So let me execute it now. You will not see any great difference per se, because the test does the same thing. It is not we have changed. We have reduced the verbosity of using dry word or find element. We are directly using the web elements here. So let me just execute it. So test would be executed twice. It will be executed twice because our registration data class, the data provider class, is returning two objects, registration data 1 and registration data 2. Okay, so test will be executed for two data sets. So let me go back to the WebDriver test and then execute it. Yeah. It's beginning now and my system is making heavy noise. Okay, so first instance of Firefox comes here, is keying in the data. It clicks on submit button. The page is refreshing. And the registration is over. Now we will have another test. Well, the test is the same, another instance wherein test would be executed for different data sets. So here we have first name 2 and all. Yeah, and it clicks on submit. Yeah, and it's over. So if you see here, there is no failure, and yeah, and there were two test runs, and we can see report also. I can refresh it. This is the test output. We have index.html. We can open it in a browser. Yeah, here comes the report. So it shows that there are, well, it indicates that there are two methods because we are passing two data sets here. Okay. Okay. So this was about page factory. So let's go back to the agenda and see what next we can see. Yeah, capture a screenshot on test failure. Okay, so let us see how we can capture a screenshot only on test failure. How we can achieve this is we can inject one of the TestNG in our teardown method to find out if there is a failure. Only in that case we should capture the screenshot. So capturing the screenshot is one API which is available in Selenium itself. What we are doing here is we will capture a screenshot only when there is a failure. So let me open the cell test case class. Okay. So let me show you what I have done in the teardown. So teardown is this after method. So I have one argument being passed here. iTest result. This class comes from TestNG. So TestNG will take care of injecting corresponding reference here when test is happening. So there is a method here called isSuccess. So what I do here is I have a check here that if result is not successful, then I take this screenshot. How I take this screenshot? I need to cast the driver object to take screenshot class, and then I can use a method called get a screenshot as. This method is Selenium itself. Okay, and what we do here is we are specifying the type of files. Samsung has a question that can we take a screenshot of past test. Yes, Samsung, very much you can take a screenshot of the past test also. What you can do is just remove this condition and it will take a screenshot of everything. I have mentioned this condition because I thought I will take a screenshot only for the failed method. It is as simple as that. Just remove this condition and you will have a screenshot of every method. Okay? Yeah. So as I said that you can just remove this condition and you will have a screenshot of every method. Okay? So I am using here to take a screenshot only of the failed method. That's all. That's the only difference. Okay? Yeah. So let's condition here. So we take this screenshot here. Now what I am doing after taking a screenshot is let me just maximize it. Yeah. So what I am doing here is I am trying to store it in a file. Now what I am doing here is I am trying to make it unique. So how do I do that? I am appending the timestamp with every screenshot. So I get the method name, then I append the timestamp here. So simple date format is an API in Java, and I am formatting the date in this format: mm-dd-yyyy_hs-ss. That's all. And then I move the file page file. So let me do one thing. Let me try to let me make the test field deliberately. So how do we do that? Let's go back to our test. So we have the assertion here. So let us make it something wrong. So in this case, we know that assertion is going to fail, and we should get this screenshot now. So if you see here, I will refresh this whole project. Okay, there's nothing new. Okay, now let me execute this. Yeah, Antonov, you are right. Or what I was referring to is instead of writing true, just remove the condition. It will take a screenshot. As simple as that. Okay. Okay, so I'm executing test again. Here comes the browser. This is first execution with first data set. Okay, and then we will have another execution round, the same method, so the data set would be different. Okay, so if you see here it says run to failure 2, so both executions have failed because we deliberately made it fail by changing the other condition here. Now if I refresh this, yeah, so you see here there are two screenshots which have come up along with the timestamp. Do you guys see that? Two screenshots. Yeah, so I can open them and see the screenshot now. Well, there is no real failure, so screenshot is not going to reveal you anything here because we made it fail deliberately. Okay, you can also do one thing. You can make these snapshot being posted in another folder. You can name it as failed method screenshot or something, instead of just keep pushing it here. It may not look good. Okay, so let me just delete these. Yes, and every meeting is recorded. So if you go to seleniumtest.com, the first tab, free Selenium training, you will see all meetable on YouTube. Okay, so yeah, so this was about capturing screenshot on test failure. Let's go back to the next session, next topic now. So we will see Maven now. Okay, great. Okay, there's a question from Anju. Yes, Anju, I'll share the URL. I'll share everything, even the project and everything once meeting is over. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So Antonov has already shared it. Okay. So let's come to the Maven now. So I want to ask you guys, how many of you are aware of Maven? If you are aware of, just say yes, else no. Okay. So okay, looks like a few are aware of, a few are not aware of. Okay. Okay, let's see what Maven is, how it can help us. So what we have done so far is, we are creating project on our own, and then we are creating the packages, and then we are seeing that where I should push, some of my classes and where the other classes should go. For example, the cell test case class is available in a package called com.seleniumtest.core. The cell test case class actually invokes the browser and shuts down the browser. Then we have data object class where we have got our registration data, which is a data provider class. Then we have page object package wherein we have two page objects, and then we have test wherein we have WebDriver. Okay. Now, if you see here, this approach is not very standardized. Different project may incorporate different approaches of creating the packages and where to push what. First thing. Second thing is, if you see the libraries here, how we add libraries is we just right click on this and we say build path, and then we say configure build path, and then we add external jars. So if you see this here, different project members may end up in using different libraries. That is different versions of libraries. So that may not be a good thing. Everyone should be on the same page, should be using the same version of library. These two things are addressed by the Maven. These are not the only two things which are addressed by the Maven, but in our case in Selenium test, these are the two major things which are addressed by the Maven. So what Maven does is it gives us a standard structure which defines as to what should go where. Another thing is it lets us define as to what what jar our project is dependent on, and this is known as dependency in the Maven. So let us see how we can set up the Maven, which is the next step. So you can download Maven from here. This is the Maven download page. Whether you are on Windows or Linux, you can take the corresponding version here, and then there are instructions how you can set it up on Windows or Unix. I have already downloaded it. I have already set it up on my Windows. I am using Windows at this point. It is as simple as defining the environment variable, how you set up Java. It's going to be very simple. Now once you have set up the Maven, if you have done everything right, as soon as you do mvn-version, it will tell you the version of the Maven. So if you see here in my case, it says Apache 2.0. Okay. Yes, Banu, we can use other browsers also, so that's not an issue. Okay, so this was about how you can set up the Maven, and how you can use the Maven in the Eclipse. So with the Eclipse, you have a plugin called M2 Eclipse, which is available here. So it has something called update site URL. This could be taken in Eclipse to get the M2 Eclipse plugin. How you do this? Just copy this URL and go to Eclipse, and you have something called software update here. Okay, install new software here. Okay, so paste this URL here. It will fetch all the required packages here, and just say next, and you will get the M2 Eclipse plugin. I have already installed it, so that it saves time for us. So two things: how you set up the Maven, download the Maven from Maven project and set it up on Windows or Unix, and then get the M2 Eclipse plugin so we can work with Maven project in the Eclipse. Okay. The setup document is very clear here. Anju, if you have any doubt, you can post it back to me. But I think they are available online in pretty good, with pretty clear instructions. So that should not be a problem. Okay. Let us create a sample Maven project now. So what Maven has is Maven has something called project life cycle, wherein we have different phases. You have compilation of project, you have project being tested, you have project being installed, you have project being packaged. So all of these are different steps in a build life cycle of the Maven. Now along with this, Maven also has something called plugins. So these plugins can be used to carry out different tasks in Maven. If you have worked with Ant, in Ant we have something called tasks. So these plugins have different goals. So let me execute one of the plugin here, one of the goal in plugin called generate, which would give us a sample Maven project, and then I'll explain you guys what are these group ID and artifact ID and other things. Yes, Amit, we can create the Maven project from the command line. That's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to create the Maven project using one of the goal called generate from the archetype. So let me just copy this, and then I'll explain what all these things are. Okay, so I copy this here. I go to the command line. I'm going to generate a sample Maven project now. I'll clear this. Let me paste it. Let me paste the command. Okay, so it's going to create the project for me now. If you are going to set up Maven first time, then it will download few other dependencies, so don't worry about that. Since I already have every every required setup available, so it's not going to download other dependencies for me. I need to get out of this. So yeah, now I will execute. Yeah, so this is our Maven project. I suppose it should support. Yeah, so if you see build is successful. Now how we can get the project here? So if you see here, there is something called artifact ID, which is my app. So what I can do is I can bring this project, I can import this project in Eclipse. Since I already have Eclipse plugin, so I'll just build, import. I need to go to the directory wherein project is available, project is created. So let me suggest existing Maven project. Next, let me browse to my workspace. So this is my workspace. And here comes the my app. Okay, so if you see here what my app is the name of the project. This is something which we have given while creating the project, the artifact. I go here, I select my app, I click OK. Now what Eclipse is doing is Eclipse is trying to find out the pom.xml file here, and it has many things which we are going to see now what pom.xml is. So I say next here and finish. So if you see here a new project will come, yeah, it has come here called my app. So do you guys see that, my app? Okay, so this is the small Maven project. Now let us try to understand what pom.xml is. So this project is created using this command which I just executed from my console. Okay, now we will see different elements in the pom.xml. Let me just open it. So this is pom.xml. I'll close other files, they are not needed. Okay, here comes the pom.xml. Okay, so what it has, it is an XML file which has many tags. Okay, so let us begin with the project tag, which is the root tag. Model version is something which defines the file itself. It is not something which is going to change very often, so it would probably remain same for a year or so. Then you have three important things, which is group ID, artifact ID, and packaging. Okay. Now what is group ID? Group ID is similar to the fully qualified name which we see in say Java packages. Now group ID is something which defines as to which organization or which group the project belongs to. Okay, so in this case group ID is given as com.mycompany.app. So this is something which is coming for the sample Maven project. Understand it as this way. If you are going to create a project for your company, you may define it as whatever name is whatever is the name of your company dot something. Okay, then comes the artifact ID. Artifact ID is nothing but the name of the artifact itself, which is generated out of this Maven project. So if you see here, we can actually create a package of this project itself. Now how do we do that is, there is the phase in Maven called ambient package which we can use. We will not be doing that, but yeah, this is how we can package project also. Now what will this package generate? This package is actually going to generate a jar file. Now how that is defined? It is defined with the tag packaging jar. Okay, and then we have version. So this is the version along which your jar is going to be appended. Name and URL you can give URL of your company or something. Now I was talking about dependencies earlier as to if you are not using Maven, in that case every project member may end up in using different versions of jars. Here we can define dependencies. We can say that which version of jar should be used for a dependency. In this way everyone would be on the same page and would be using the same jar file. Is this clear? Okay. Now let us see how we can change our project to this Maven structure. So let me open our project. So this is our page factory oriented project. I'm going to close this my app. Okay. And version is the version of the the artifact which is going to be generated out of the project. So if I do an ambient package here it will be appended with this version 1.0 -snapshot. Okay. You may usually not require to package your project, but in case you do. Okay. Okay. Now let us see how we can change our project to this Maven structure. So this is our project page factory. I have already done this. So I'm going to show it to you how I have done it. So this is my Maven project. Okay. It is very similar to my app. Okay. Now let us see what all we have here. We have two packages which will be coming as soon as you create the Maven project. SRC test Java. So SRC test Java might make it clear that your tests are going to be residing in SRC test Java package. Now what goes in SRC main Java? You know, anything which is related to the page object or the data object, or if you have some utility methods, they should go in main Java. So they are something which would be used by your test method. Is that clear? Let me repeat again. SRC test Java is something which is going to contain your test method. SRC main Java is something which is going to contain, say, your page objects or your data objects, data provider class, or any utility method you might have. Okay, so this gives a clear separation of where goes what. Earlier, what we were doing is we were creating the packages ourselves and pushing things there. Now we know where we should keep what. Okay. Now comes the question of the data files. Okay, so what I have done here is I have used something called properties file. So where should they go? Similar to SRC main Java and SRC test Java, we have SRC main resources and SRC test resources. So this is where you could keep your data files. Say SRC main resources, I have got a property file here, and we will see its usage next. Let me take some question here. Tulsi has a question. Yes, Tulsi, main Java can contain any reusable code. That's right. What is data object? I mean, data object is something which we had covered in previous session, I suppose. If you see that video, you will see that how you can reduce the number of arguments which are passed around the methods by creating a larger object, and then you can use the data provider capability of TestNG. So if you watch the video, it should be clear to you. If it is not, drop me an email. I'll try to explain. Okay. 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 Now let us try to understand what different I have done here. So if I see the data object class, which is registration data, and if I open the old data objects class from the page factory project, so what we have here is in the registration data, I have all these variables, okay, and then what I was doing is I was creating two registration objects and I was hard coding all of these data sets here, all these values here, okay. Now the difference is, in the new registration data class, I am going to use the data which is coming from this properties file. Okay. Now let us see how properties file contains the data. So properties file is going to contain data in a format of key value pair. So you have the key and the value. So I have something called first name, then I have value of the first name, then I have last name, then I have value of the last name. So on I have still confirm password. Is that clear? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these keys to get the corresponding value in my registration data class, in the new registration data class. So if I go to new registration data class, what I do is to use one of the class from Java called properties, which lets us read the object, which lets us read the properties file. Okay. Guys, while asking the question, if you focus on the questions which are related to this session, it would really help us. If you have any question which is outside this session, you could definitely ask them towards the end of the session. So please park such questions for the end of the session. Please don't ask such questions right now. If you have any doubt in what I'm explaining right now, please ask that right now. Okay. Okay. Any response? I was saying that if you have any question which is not related to what I'm explaining right now, please park it, for the end of the session. I'll take those questions there. Right now, let us focus on what I'm explaining, and if I have any doubt with this, I'll try to take up those questions, okay? It will save everyone's time. Okay, so coming back to the properties file. So what we are doing in registration data class now is we are reading data from the properties file. How we do that? In the Java, you have a class called properties. So we need to use that. We need to create a new object of the properties, and then we need to load our data file. Now let us see how I'm loading the data file here. So how we load data file is over the properties object. There's a method called load. This method takes the input stream. How do we get the input stream? we can get the class object of the registration data itself, and then we have a method over it called get resource as a string. Now if you see here, is argument is the name of the file. How do we pass that? Slash followed by the name of the file. Now if you see this, the path of the file is not hard coded here. Since the path of the file is not hard coded here, anyone running on any system, whether it is Linux, whether it is Windows, whether it is Mac, should be able to use this because path is not hard coded. So we see here one more advantage of using Maven. You do not have to hard code path. If you have to read a file which is available in the resource, mark it as in quotation slash name of the file. Okay. Okay. Now let us see how we read the values. So I have these variable names. How I read the value over the property object. Call the method called getProperty, and to this method you have to pass the name of the key. So here closely we have to use the key name. Okay. So what are the key names? Key names are first name, last name, phone number, and till confirm password. So this is how I am getting those values here. Yeah. So what I do here is first name variable is going to get the value from the key first name, last name variable is going to get the value from the last name, till confirm password, which is going to get the value from the confirm password. Is that clear? So this is how I am getting all the values from the properties file. So we have not hard coded data here. This is the example of using properties file. We could have used CSV also or text file also, and then our getter and setter remains same. And at last, what I am doing here is I am just passing one registration data object. So this is similar to our previous approach. There is nothing new here. So let us go back and see our test class here. Sorry, test class is here. Yeah. Okay, so test class is also same. There is no difference in the test class. Now how do we execute it? So how we execute this is, as I was explaining earlier, there are different phases in a build life cycle in the Maven. So one of the phase is test. So we can use mv and test. It is going to pick up whatever tests we have and execute them. But how does Maven know what are the tests? So let us understand that how Maven understands it. Okay. So we are aware of TestNG.xml file, right? TestNG.xml is a file which is used in TestNG itself. We can have all our class variables or packages or the methods which are used in the test. So we have just one test class here. Okay. Is that clear? Okay, great. Now let us see how to pick up this file. So let us see our updated pom.xml file here. There are some differences in the pom.xml here than what we saw earlier. Let me open this. Okay, so modern version, group ID, everything remains same. If you see here, there are two dependencies. One is the Selenium dependency, other is the TestNG dependency. So these are the two jar files which are being used in the project, Now what we have here following this is couple of plugins. So there are two plugins I am using here. As I was explaining earlier, plugins can be considered as something which has lots of goals which could be used for the task which we want to carry out. So plugins also look very similar to the dependency. They also have group ID, artifact ID, and version. One plugin which we are using here is Maven compiler plugin. What it does is we are letting Maven know that it should use Java 1.5 to execute the test in the path. Another plugin which we are using here is the Maven Surefire plugin, the version 2.4.2. Now this plugin lets us specify the TestNG XML file. So it has a configuration element within which we can specify the TestNG.xml file. So what happens is, as soon as we invoke mv and test, Maven is going to go to this Maven Surefire plugin. This plugin will say that it has to pick up test from TestNG.xml, and this is the TestNG.xml where we have got the class, the test class. Is that clear? Okay, great. So let me execute this from mv and from Maven itself. Since I have M2 Eclipse plugin, so I can right click here and execute test from here. Okay, it's not showing no option. It should have. Yeah, it is here. I can do it. But what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to go to the command line and execute the test. So let me just clear this, and I'll go to our Selenium test project. Yep, and here I'll execute mv and test. Yep. So it's going to pick up the class test classes from TestNG. XML. Yeah, it's going to run the test suite now. I should bring up the browser. Okay, here comes the browser. So the execution is same. We have not changed anything in the test method per se, but what we have done is we have Mavenized our project, that's all. And the test is executed. Now let us see where test report goes. So let me close other projects. Let me close this. Yeah, let me refresh it. Yeah. So as soon as the Maven execution is over, it will generate a target file wherein we have shellfire reports, and then the shellfire reports here are nothing but the same as TestNG report, because we are using TestNG to create the test, and then we can open this and see our results. Yeah, so this is the result. Yes, it passed. Which is test registration name, data was being passed. Okay. So this is how you can execute tests from Maven. Let me close this. Okay. Now, where these jar files, come from? So you have the form here, and you are defining the dependencies. We have got two dependencies here. We have the Selenium server, and we have the TestNG. So there is a universal repo for Maven, which is repo2.maven. It is here. I have opened it. Yeah. So this is the Maven repo. Centralized repo, these all jars are downloaded from here. If you want to search for certain artifacts, say for Selenium, I can just type its name here. If it is available on the centralized repo, you will see lots of listings. So if you see the last listing here, yeah, this is the Selenium server, the latest version. You have the group ID, artifact ID, and the version. So if you want to use a dependency, some other dependency, try to search it here, and you will find out group, artifact, and the version. Once you know that, you know how to add the dependency. Just add another dependency tag and specify those group ID, artifact ID, and the version. Is that clear? Yeah. So let us see what's the next topic. Yeah. We have covered all. So, okay, I think this is the right time to take questions. Yeah, right. So go ahead and shoot your questions, and I'll try to answer. Can we do security testing with Selenium 2.0? There is no explicit way to carry out security test. I'm working on a project. Actually, I'll be working on a project, so I'll share the details once I have something up and running. But there is no implicit way to do security testing. That's another test. How add a screenshot to the generated report. However, I do not have any answer of this question at this point. I think TestNG does not have any explicit way. But let me work on this. Let me see if I find any solution. Another question. Okay, guys, hang on one by one. Yes, so Madhukar, what you can do is, if a new version comes in, the only thing you have to do is go to your form and just replace the version. That's all. Just remove, say if 2.27 comes tomorrow, just replace that here. That's all. Okay. XML wizard. I'm not quite sure, Venkatesh, what you are referring to, but if you have into Eclipse plugin, then you should get the form and other Maven related things. If that is something you are referring to. No, Selenium does not support testing applet. I do not think so. Selenium supports that. Yeah, Selenium is something which I was referring to. This is something I would be working on for security testing of Selenium. So this is a security testing tool using Selenium, but it is in very novice state at this point. You may not be able to use it. Test in the grid, they are not going to be any different, Suraj, than what we have done now. Using Selenium grid is not going to have any impact on how your data is specified. Okay. No, I don't think you have to use any XML flash. You should be able to view XML files in Eclipse, the version which you are downloading, the Juno. Even I'm using Juno, so I didn't have to download any extra plugin. Okay, Manish, as far as Selenium ID is concerned, I have covered least in Selenium ID, because as far as Selenium ID is concerned, it is not going to help you in automation. So if you want to achieve all these parameterization and other things, you will have to come to either Selenium RC. Since that is deprecated, you have to come to Selenium WebDriver. So forget about using Selenium IDE. No, you cannot, Amit, you cannot use an already open browser window in Selenium. You have to open a new window. At least with the current implementation, you cannot use an already open browser with Selenium. Okay, as Excel, Tulsi, I'll take up in the next session. I have not covered that here. I'll take up the CSV file, using data from CSV file. Mobile web testing, good question. I was thinking to take up the Android testing in the next session. So I think next session should answer your question, Dinesh. I will take up the Android testing in next session. No, there is no default way to compare images, Jatin. You may have to convert them into some sort of file and compare those files. Yeah, that's all I could say. Next session, I think within 2 weeks, not later than that. I'll compose next session. I'll conduct 2 weeks. So I was thinking to take up the Android testing, and Tulsi posted one thing about the Excel, so I'll take up the CSV data thing. If you guys have any other topic which should be covered, drop me an email or let me know, so I'll do that. Okay, there are a few more questions. Ravi, you can use JMeter, and in that you can derive JUnit test. So there are ways to do load testable. That's going to be. So usually in the load testing, you do not have multiple browsers running. All happens through the HTTP communication. So I do not know how feasible that's going to be. Batch file. What kind of batch file you want to create? Either. My mail ID is okay. If you want to know my mail ID, let me just type in. It is tkumarb@gmail.com. Yes, you can generate WebDriver code. I suppose there is a way to export test as WebDriver code also, so that should help. Wow, we have 46 participants. I didn't notice. Okay, equivalent of skip exception. In JUnit, I'm not quite sure. I don't use much of JUnit, so I cannot say. Yes, I'm going to upload this project. So after this session, I'll drop you guys one email about how you can get the project which I use here. Still element exception. That's a good question. And what you can do in case of still element exception is you can, if you know that certain elements have this error, you will have to wrap them around. You can do something like this. Let me give you an example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the page object. So guys, Andrew has a good question about how to handle stale element exception. And if you do not know, let me explain you what a stale element exception is. If you have got your web element from a page, and by that time you come to carrying out certain operation on the element, say typing in a text box or selecting a value from the drop down, and if DOM has changed, in that case your element is going to be invalid. Okay, in that case what you can do is you can again find the element in the page. So how you can do that is, say here, so these web elements are not going to help you in case of a stale element reference. So consider you know that there are certain elements which always returns you these exceptions. So what you can do is you can do something like this: public web element. Say I am going to name this method is getSafeElement. This method is going to take the buy object. Okay. Now inside this you have to do a couple of wraps. So I'll use try catch. Okay. So first thing is, if there is no error Andrew, then we can directly return it from here. We will say return. So I have access to driver, find element, and the locator is here. Okay. Now consider this does not work, and as soon as driver.find element you do, and there is some error. So what you do is come to the catch, use some power or something, say 1 second, and try to find your element again. Now what we will do later is we will we will wrap all of this in one loop. and again find the element and return it. Okay, so let us do one thing. It says that it will throw one exception, so I'm just throwing it. I'm not handling it at this point. Okay, so let us do one while loop here. I will declare one variable. Okay, while I is less than 5, it's going to try 5 times. Okay, let us remove this and let's end it here. Guys, hold on for a second. I'm trying to answer end of question about how to handle stale element reference exception. Okay, we'll have to take it outside. So what we can do here is we can declare one web element, and I'm going to assign this here. Okay, and then at last, after this, let us return it. Okay, yep. So I know this is one approach which you can use. Use it only for the elements, with which you know that they occur with the stale element reference exception. So what I have done here is I have declared the web element here, and then I'm looping through say 5 times. Let me break it here. If it works first time itself, okay, so we do not have to iterate through again and again. So if it works, I get the element here. If it does not, if there is some exception, the exception, the superclass will catch your stale element reference exception also. I wait for a certain time and I again try to find the element, and at last I return the element. So does that answer your question, Indo? Yes, you have to use the driver dot find by. So I'm using by object directly here, so I'm passing that here. Otherwise, you'll have to do by dot find, by dot xpath or other things. Yeah. So see, I'm passing the I'm passing the by object here. Otherwise, what you have to do here is you have to use something like this: by dot and the corresponding element and the element locator. I suppose you're referring to this. If you want to, okay, another question added to that is you want to override the click method. So I suppose certain clicks result in errors. So what you can do here is I will name this method as save click. Okay, and here you are passing the by locator, and here you will do the element dot click. Okay, so you can try this, and yeah, if there is some error, we will find element again, and we will again do click. So we do not have to return element in this case. And does this answer your question? 10x. Okay. What is 10x? What are you referring to? I'm not quite sure. Oh, 10 out of 10. Okay. 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 So that was about how to handle stale element reference batch file. So later, I'm not quite sure why you are behind batch file, but yeah, you can create a batch file I know in Windows you can create, in case of Linux you can create the shell script, and then see here what I have done is I was executing say ambient test, right? I was writing ambient test and executing it. So you can mention ambient test in case of your batch file in Windows, or in case of shell script in Unix, and execute that. Okay, so guys, any other question? Yeah, you cannot automate the app itself. What you can do is you can automate the browser, browser applications, not the app per se. Jatin, you're right about that. Okay, guys. I suppose yeah, we are done with the meeting. Sure, Avida, you can post your question to me and I'll try to answer that. Okay. Okay, guys. So I'm going to end the session now, and I'll keep you posted about next session. So as I said that I'll be covering two things in the next session. One is the reading files from Excel, of the CSP because that is platform independent, and the mobile testing. If you have any suggestions, post me back about what topic should be covered in the next meeting. Okay? Yeah. Thank you guys. Thanks for attending. Have a good week coming up. Yeah. That's all.